Welcome to Shelter Music. I'm Seth Boustead. I am a composer. I'm the executive director of Access Contemporary Music. I am the producer and host of the contemporary music podcast, Relevant Tones. So I'm kind of up to my eyeballs in contemporary classical music. And I was so honored that the American Composers Alliance asked me to curate the music that we're going to hear tonight, music from their Shelter Music project. Shelter Music was originally meant to be a series of live concerts, but, well, I don't need to go into it. I think we all know what happened in 2020. And instead, they pivoted, as so many organizations did, in this case, I think in a marvelous fashion, and facilitated dozens of collaborations between performers and composers. And the end result, as we'll see, is, I think, absolutely fantastic. If you don't know the American Composers Alliance for some reason, well, that's crazy, but I'll tell you about them. ACA was formed in the 1930s by Aaron Copland, Colin McPhee, Marion Bauer, and others. It was formed as a collective, and the idea then, as now, is to nurture the creative past and present of American music through the preservation and production of 13,000 scores and counting from more than 300 composers, which is obviously incredible. And ACA continues today to work closely with performing musicians, many of whom we'll see tonight, presenting organizations, and music scholars alike to support performances, media displays, writings, and research on ACA works. Again, there were dozens of pieces in the Shelter Music Project. From these, I narrowed it down to 5. Let's start with a piece called On Balance by Ed Jacobs. I spoke with Ed, as well as the violinists Ran Cheng and Eliot Heaton.
Of course, COVID happened and still happens. And ACA, American Composers Alliance, came up with this amazing program, which we all, as ACA composers, learned about through an email. And it just seemed, certainly to me, to be this brilliant idea of trying to make lemonade out of all these lemons that we're in. Giving both composers and performers a way to connect. So ACA asked us to submit to them for consideration, or to Will, who was running this project, pieces for solo or perhaps duets. The idea being, of course, that these would be recorded in-house by people who are isolated. So if there happens to be a couple, as is the case here, who are isolating in the same place, and of course they could do something, but otherwise it was solo things. So I had a solo thing and then this duet. So I submitted some pieces that ACA already publishes, and suggested that if anyone was interested in doing them, that would be great. I would be honored to have someone take it on. And I will just say that one of the best parts of all this is that I got to meet new people. These are Eliot and Ren are the only musicians that I am aware of knowing in Detroit, and it's great. I mean, I can say I know people in Detroit now, which is cool. So that's how it came about from my end. So On Balance was a piece commissioned by a new music festival in the Amherst, Massachusetts area, what they call the Five Colleges New Music Festival. And it's run by Elizabeth Chang, a violinist who teaches at UMass, and Sal Macchia, composer and bassist at UMass, and other people at other campuses among the 5 colleges. They all collaborate. But Sal and Elizabeth and Liz reached out and asked me to write a piece that could be played by advanced college players, university students, and that was for 2 violins, a short piece, 4 or 5 minutes. So that was the genesis of the piece. I am going to have to look up exactly when it was written. I'm going to guess 2015, but honestly, I don't know. It's not in front of me. So that was it. That was the genesis of the piece, and it was written for, as I say, advanced university students. I believe it was premiered by a couple of Liz's students there. I was not able to make it to that performance, nor did I hear a recording. But of course, Eliot and Ran are far beyond those capabilities and brought a tremendous amount of nuance to it, which I'm so glad this was the first time I'd heard it.
We went to school together and we've been living together for a long time, but we've kind of played in our own separate groups and tried to keep that separate from our marriage. But when we got stuck in here together with COVID, all of our concerts got canceled. Both of our orchestras stopped, and all orchestras, canceled all of their performances. So here we were in our apartment with our cats, crossing things off our calendar, every week because something else will get canceled. And then ACA, we got in touch with ACA through our good friend Will Rowe, who was running this project, I believe, and so with that and we said, if we're ever going to play together, now is the time, right? We got no one else to play with. It's hard to think of things to practice when you don't know when your next performance is.
Last time I seriously heard Eliot play was when we were both in school, and we were in the same studio both in the college and in grad school. And and then we got different jobs and we were in different groups. And this was the first time I feel like I really see, how this person works as a musician. And it was a great experience.
What you just described is really fascinating to me. And I don't know, it's the sentimental side of me maybe, but I'm thrilled to have been a part of you two getting reacquainted in that way. I mean, it's a really cool story you just told. I think that's great. Yeah.
Here are Ran Cheng and Eliot Heaton to perform On Balance by Ed Jacobs. A fantastic performance too by Ran Cheng and Eliot Heaton. I love their story about how they rarely get to play together, and this project brought them closer together even though they're in the same house. A wonderful example of how shelter music brought people together during this time. Let's turn to a piece that is very different. This is Robert Scott Thompson's Elegy of the Eremocene, performed by Craig Hultgren, and it has a pretty interesting inspiration.
The way I got involved with the shelter project is that knowing that I would have a fair amount of time on my hands, I offered them some support service for the entire project, in the sense of doing some audio restoration and mastering work for the pieces that were coming in to be part of the opus of the shelter project. And at the same time, I was working on a chamber work, and out of this chamber work, I got interested in doing a solo cello work that's kind of a derivative work from that chamber work. And I just sent it to them and said, I've just done this. And since they published my music, the idea was to publish the score so that cellists could find it. And hot off the presses, I sent it over to Craig. And I didn't really send it to Craig with the idea that he was going to get around to playing it now or really ever. And I was sort of, shocked and delighted simultaneously that he put this together and put it on video, and so artfully. I just wanted him to have the score in the first case. He's one of the great theorists of biology, and he is the person who coined the term biophilia, which Bjork used as a title of one of her projects, and also coined the term Eremocene, the age of loneliness. And that got me sort of focused on figuring out how I might respond to the pandemic and being in a state of isolation. And then the notion of the elegy seemed to be prominent in my thinking, that this is a kind of solemn perspective and one of concern expressed in this piece. I had a couple of ideas about it also. I wanted to do a cello work that didn't have very much bells and whistles in it. It was really about the tone of the instrument and really about traditional styles of playing.
In order to play it, in a Boulesian fashion, one has to subdivide each one of those little 16th notes at 120 BPM. And that's hard. And so while it appears that this is a marvelous introspective insight into loneliness for a performer, it's just mind-boggling active counting. And then on top of it, it's all soft, and every phrase has its own unique individual dynamic contour. Wonderful shades of soft and pastel softer, and then distancing further away from that even and softer. And then, large chunks that, that's silence. But, those silence aren't generic, two bars and out. There are these syncopated time field stochastic equations constructions, and one is just ticking all the way through. It's a remarkable creation, and I was happy to see it. I'm happy to play it and record it, and we need to get it out in the world.
Well, the first step to getting it out into the world is to present it now. Here is Craig Hultgren to perform Elegy of the Eremocene by Robert Scott Thompson. That was Elegy of the Eremocene, performed by Craig Hultgren. That was one of the works that caught my attention right away. And the origin story of the piece, the inspiration for the piece, is so fascinating. I unfortunately had to cut it down because of time constraints, but Robert was talking about a lot of other things that went into the creation of this work. And I absolutely agree with Craig that we need to get it out there, have more people hear it. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I do. Let's turn now to another married couple who didn't play so much before shelter music brought them together within the same household. I'm talking about Mike Finckel, cello, and Andrea Schultz, violin. They recorded a piece by Alison Nowak called Constancy. And of course, I got to talk with all three of them, though I warn you, I have a different background. So how did this particular collaboration come about? Did the ACA reach out to the three of you?
Yes, I think it pretty much happened that way. I just find it remarkable that everybody was sheltering in place, and then this opportunity to have this recording, and it's a wonderful culmination that it all fell into place too.
We should say, Alison, also that you and Mike have known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Since you were both.
So I think of him, the first person I think of. For cellists, that's for sure. But I have known both of you a long time, and you're both extraordinary musicians. So I was thrilled that you're being stuck at home and that you were available to do something like this.
And the dedicatee of the piece is somebody that I knew very well too, close friend of our families.
That's right. That's right. The piece was written. It was written in 1984 for our close friend Connie Wallace, who's a amateur cellist, and myself, and I dedicated it to Connie's mother, Dorothy Wallace, who was a music lover and arts patron. And Connie and I think, got through it a couple of times, but very sadly, she died of cancer about 20 years ago.
Yeah, her given name was Constance.
That's right.
Constance
That's right.
Wallace. So thus Constancy, I guess. Am I right?
That is right. That's right. And I was thinking about that as I posed the piece about her constancy.
Although I must say, it didn't escape my notice that there was a certain hidden meaning to the title during the pandemic. The constancy of the day unfolding in the same way as the day before unfolded. Yeah.
I think these kinds of pandemic projects, it's been really interesting because so many people have had those kinds of experiences or limitations where they say, oh, I'm not a recording engineer. There's always been somebody else who does that.
Right.
And that was your experience, it sounds like, too, just kind of learning how to do this.
I remember there was a day there where it was about 98 degrees out and 120% humidity, and our air conditioner was incredibly loud. So, and there was Con Ed was changing out the gas lines out front, which was very loud, and there were trucks backing up.
Beep, 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 beep. So I would make a take, and I said, that's it, I've got it. And I just got to the note that I thought I got, and it beep, 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 beep. So
and then I remember I was, doing my take, and then as soon as I stopped it, I would turn on the air conditioner for, a minute and a half, and then turn it off and do the next take. And, yeah.
I didn't hear any beeps at all.
Pretty eventful, yeah.
Yeah, next time we'll go to Antarctica and try it.
But it was a wonderful project at a time when, of course, it was pretty devastating that the whole musical scene had shut down, and all of our summer activities and concerts and teaching, everything was canceled. And yet we had each other, and Mike and I hadn't actually really played together in years because our lives, we do different things musically. And so Alison, thank you to you, because it was really your piece. And again, something about that title. I know where the title comes from, but also just the constancy of my honey here. And being able to work together again. Was a real gift.
Here's Constancy by Alison Nowak, performed by Mike Finckel cello and Andrea Schultz violin. That was Constancy by Alison Nowak, performed by Mike Finckel, cello, and Andrea Schultz, violin. All of the composers and performers that I've featured so far on tonight's Shelter Music presentation have been in the United States. But for the next collaboration, we're going to shake it up a little bit. And the composer Glenn Stallcop, his piece is Restless in Loops. He was in Phoenix, Arizona, but the cellist, Sarah Walker, was in the Netherlands. So that made the collaboration a little bit more interesting in some respects. Glenn, can you tell me about the piece itself? Like, what will people that have never heard it before, what was the inspiration and what will people hear?
Well, Sarah was the inspiration. It's for her. And especially I wrote her two pieces. One is Restless in Place, and then I wrote Restless in Loops because she's so good at the loop station. And I've been thinking about writing for her, but I really didn't have an understanding of how it worked and everything. So we cleared that up, and then I tried to write the piece for loop station, and it was a lot of fun.
You used all the channels, but in the recording for the ACA for Shelter Music, Sarah, you didn't actually use the loop station.
I couldn't use the loop station because it needed to be too accurate. What Glenn wrote is what he just described. Are the first and the beginning and the end are two different tracks that go at different speeds, and so you get a continuously changing, shifting color, and it just wasn't possible to do that beautifully. So I actually pre-recorded that track, and that was very exciting because I had to pre-record the loops before I'd ever really heard the piece. So it was, very exciting.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we are going to have some loops, right?
Oh, absolutely. The whole piece is looped.
Good, okay, because it's called Restless in Loops. I mean, there better be
Absolutely. Many, many loops.
What was did you use a click track, or how did you record over yourself like that?
I use a click track, yeah. And that's actually, I think, the first part, which I love because it allows me when I play the solo part to be really, really expressive. But also I love it because I was stuck at home. And it was the first time for a really long time that I had the feeling that I could play something together. And then the middle section has a very repetitive, very compelling loop. And it was really hard and very challenging and very fun, actually, to make that expressive when you never had a chance to escape the timing.
There are moments in the piece where the loops shut off, and she plays by herself rather freely. So when you're doing a click track, you have to do something with that time, and if you have to start up the click track again, I mean, how is that going to happen? So that's a difficult recording problem.
It was hard, and another thing that was hard was it really, really is expressive what Glenn wrote. It has a huge amount of, I don't know, for me, emotional content and dynamic content, and he's very precise about many things. And to do that in this context was actually really difficult. With the click track made the fact of the loop even more like you couldn't escape it. And then to continue to be expressive over that compelling click track and loop was really hard and really, really fun, if I may say so. Thank you, Glenn. Yeah, really, it was such a pleasure to have something so interesting to work on.
And this whole project it was a great idea to do during this time.
Absolutely.
What a brilliant thought it was to do this, because you know, they had, you know, they usually put on concerts, and suddenly they had no outlet to go, and this was super. This was a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole thing was like that for me. That Glenn wrote me a piece, and then ACA existed, and Glenn knew about it, and there was a place to do it, and oh, it was great. Yeah.
Let's have some loops. Here's Sarah Walder to perform Glenn Stallcop's Restless in Loops. That's Sarah Walder on cello performing Restless in Loops by Glenn Stallcop. I love the story where she's talking about how she put it together. It must have been such a meticulous process to get those loops exactly right, exactly the way that Glenn envisioned them. It's funny, too, how we're all becoming content creators now, myself included, as I produce videos, which I never did before. And I know performers are very used to going into the studio and playing, but now they also have to produce, have to be the recording engineer and then the video artist as well. It's definitely something that we're seeing tonight in this presentation of Shelter Music by the American Composers Alliance. I'm going to end the program now with a solo clarinet piece by Allan Blank, 6 miniatures for solo clarinet. And maybe it's a little odd to put the solo piece at the end of the program. But, well, this is kind of an unusual solo in some respects. What Allan Blank, who unfortunately is no longer with us, has done in this piece is really to create a more full sound, almost an orchestral sound, a richer and more full sound than what you normally think of in a solo work. Here's clarinetist Bixby Kennedy to tell us more about it.
I wanted to say thank you so much for, selecting my piece, my recording to, be featured, the Allan Blank, the 6 miniatures, and also I just wanted to thank you and thank the ACA for, the support that was so necessary during that time last year. And, it really helped me out. And I'm sure I can speak for a lot of my fellow musicians who took part in the project. And, it was, I'm immensely grateful to have been able to take part in this project. So there's that. And then about the miniatures themselves, I don't claim to be an Allan Blank scholar. And I did a little bit of research on his life and, looking at the fact that he played violin in orchestra, I believe, and he kind of grew up in New York and then traveled around America. And, one thing that when I was kind of reading up about him and also trying to really get a concept for these miniatures, the thing that I just kept being drawn to and what kept striking me is each of the miniatures are so very orchestral in terms of they almost each have sort of an aesthetic of kind of quoting different composers. I definitely, as a clarinetist, feel that some of the gestures that are used in the miniatures, quote either Bartok or Prokofiev or some of the other, chamber music or orchestral works that we're playing oftentimes. And so that was one thing that I really tried to capture in my recording is just this variety of kind of sound worlds that Allan was trying to allude to throughout the miniatures.
How did they open up the catalog to you and you looked at solo clarinet pieces and chose something, or were they kind of leaning you, heading you in the direction of the Allan Blank?
They, the way that I came to the Allan Blank, yes, I had access to kind of look at the scores and choose the couple that I wanted to play. And so the Allan Blank was one of the two that I performed. And gosh, the other one is escaping me. I'm sure I could find it if I grabbed my iPad. But yeah, I had a great time recording both. And so I was drawn to the Blank because it looked very interesting in terms of content. And while there are some kind of nasty runs, especially at the end, it looked like it was very varied. And
yeah, that's actually what I was just going to say. It's been a little while since I listened to it, but I remember each one having a very distinct character and thinking even like, wow, these are really different facets of the same composer. Can you kind of react to that?
Yes. Yeah. No, I would totally agree. And I think that that's something that I really tried to tried to bring out. Not only trying to temper the way that I'm playing to like styles and voices of different composers that I thought the compositions were alluding to, but also just the different characters in the pieces. Most of them are, I think the first one is a little bit unique because it's so kind of much like a fanfare, and different things are happening in different spheres all around. And you're kind of surrounded by these different, almost like trumpet calls with these like, this sort of wide variety in quick changing character. But then most of the other ones kind of take on, there's sort of two characters that happen. We have the first character and then the second, and then they interact and then get resolved. And that's kind of how the form plays out in most of the other ones. So in using the form like that and through the lens of different composers, it gives each one a very unique kind of shape and gesture, and gives each one a unique sound world to play in as a orchestra of one.
That's part of my conversation with clarinetist Bixby Kennedy. Observant people will notice that I have a different background and a different shirt on. How is that possible? Anyway, here is Bixby Kennedy to perform this wonderful piece by Allan Blank, 6 Miniatures for Clarinet. That's Bixby Kennedy performing 6 miniatures for solo clarinet by Allan Blank. Perhaps an unusual way to wrap up a program with a solo work, but I agree with Bixby. There is kind of an orchestral quality to those works. Certainly, I think masterworks for the solo clarinet, and a fantastic performance by Bixby. That is our program tonight. Music from the Shelter Music Project, presented by the American Composers Alliance. I'm Seth Boustead. It was a great honor to have been your guide through this music, and to have been able to curate it, and to get to listen to the dozens of pieces that came out of this fantastic project. If you want to hear more, and I hope that you do, you can go to composers.com. That's the American Composers Alliance's website, and scroll down a little bit, and you'll see the links for Shelter Music. So do check out the dozens of pieces that came out of this fantastic project. On behalf of the American Composers Alliance and Shelter Music, thank you so much for tuning in tonight.